Some people walk into a room and command attention without saying a word. Others speak, explain, even beg to be understood, only to be ignored, interrupted, or dismissed. The difference isn't intelligence, it's presence. And most people never figure out why they're constantly overlooked, talked over, or underestimated, even when they're right, prepared, or well-intentioned. Here's the truth. The world doesn't treat you based on how good your ideas are. It treats you based on how you present them. In this video, you'll learn what separates men who get taken seriously from men who get brushed aside. You'll understand why some people's words carry weight, while others are forgotten the moment they finish speaking. And most importantly, you'll learn how to become the former, quiet, grounded, and impossible to ignore. If you're tired of not being heard, if you're ready to stop explaining and start commanding, like this video, share it with someone who's been speaking too much but saying too little, and subscribe to Victory Stoic for grounded, practical strategies on presence, power, and self-mastery. Drop a comment with "Power doesn't rush," or share a moment when staying calm gave you more control than speaking ever could. Let's begin. Number 1. Why you're treated like you don't matter, even when you do. You walk into a room with something to say. Maybe it's an idea, maybe it's a point that needs to be made. You speak, clear, logical, even right. But people talk over you. They glance at their phones. They cut in before you finish. Later, someone else says the exact same thing you just did, and the room nods in agreement like they've never heard it before. And you sit there wondering, what the hell just happened? It happens at work, in relationships, even in conversations with friends. And over time, it chips away at something deeper than pride. It hits your sense of identity, your sense of place, because deep down, no one wants to be invisible. But for some reason, you keep being treated like you are. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The world doesn't respond to truth. It responds to signal. And most people, without realizing it, send the wrong one. They speak too fast, smile too much, try too hard. And the room hears one thing: low status. Not because you are, but because your energy says so. This isn't about confidence in theory. It's about how your nervous system broadcasts your internal state without permission. Evolution trained the human brain to recognize threat, strength, and weakness instantly. Someone who moves too quickly, reacts too fast, or rushes to explain themselves is unconsciously categorized as less powerful. Not by intention, but by instinct. A 2011 study by psychologist Alex Todorov at Princeton revealed that people form an impression of dominance and competence within 50 milliseconds of seeing a face. And those impressions rarely change, even after hours of conversation. Add tone of voice, eye movement, and response time, and your social rank is decided before your logic even reaches their ears. And that's why people treat you the way they do. They're not analyzing your points. They're responding to what your behavior suggests about where you sit in the invisible pecking order. If your energy says, "Please listen to me," they won't. But if your energy says, "I can sit in stillness and wait for you to notice," they do, instantly. Let's look at Daniel, 42, an attorney from New York. Brilliant on paper, handled high-profile cases, sharp mind, articulate speech, but in firm meetings he always got talked over. Clients deferred to younger, flashier attorneys. It confused him, until one senior partner pulled him aside and said, "You talk like you're trying to catch up. You speak before the room's even ready. That tells them you don't expect to be heard." That hit hard, not because it wasn't true, but because it was. Daniel realized his need to be quick wasn't helping. It was hurting. It was telegraphing neediness. And that's the scent that gets ignored, no matter how smart you are. This is why men with less knowledge but more presence end up leading the conversation. It's not fair. But it's how social psychology works. People follow presence before they follow proof. You can have truth, but if you deliver it like a servant, the room sees you as one. Stoic philosopher Heracles wrote, "A man's value is not revealed in how much he speaks, but in the gravity of how he carries silence." You feel that quote because you've seen it. There are men who walk into a room and don't say a word, but everyone watches them. That's not charisma, that's self-containment. That's what your nervous system radiates when you stop trying to earn attention and start expecting respect. So before we talk about what to do, you need to understand this. You're not being dismissed because your ideas are weak. You're being dismissed because your signal is weak. And signal isn't what you say. It's how you exist in the space between words. And in the next section, we'll shift that. In a way so subtle, yet so powerful, people will start treating you like they've always known you mattered. But first, you have to stop acting like you don't. Number 2. The 2-second move that changes how the world responds. Now we reveal it. The shift that recalibrates social dynamics faster than anything else you can do without speaking a word. You've seen the buildup. You've felt the tension. Now here's the release. Pause for 2 seconds before you speak. Not a long pause. Not a dramatic one. Just 2 quiet seconds, owned with intention. And that tiny decision will instantly reset how people read your presence. Most people speak to avoid discomfort. You, from this moment forward, speak after you've absorbed it. That's the difference. It's deceptively simple. You're asked a question. Don't reply right away. You're challenged. Don't defend yourself on instinct. You're given the floor. Don't rush to fill it. You pause. You look. You breathe. Then you speak. And the room shifts. Not because of what you said, but because you chose when to say it. Let's break down why this works. In behavioral psychology, this is tied to something called expectation tension. When someone pauses before responding, it activates the anticipation centers in the listener's brain. The silence becomes a vacuum, one that demands attention, and our brains are wired to give it. Think of a symphony right before the first note drops. That breathless moment isn't empty, it's electric. Marcus Aurelius in his Meditations wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." The same is true for your speech. If your mind is racing, your words will stumble. But if your mind is calm, your pause creates presence. A composed pause doesn't say, "I don't know what to say." It says, "I'm choosing what matters." Let's talk about David, 35, a high school principal in North Carolina, known for being smart but often dismissed by board members who saw him as too young, too eager. During a school board meeting, he was asked a tough question about a disciplinary policy. Normally, he would have jumped in to prove his knowledge, but this time he waited. 2 full seconds, held eye contact, then said, "That's a fair question. Let me give you the full context." He noticed something new. They listened. No one interrupted. The pause reset the power dynamic. He wasn't reacting, he was leading. And that's what the 2-second pause does. It repositions you from a reactive role to a centered one. You are no longer following the tempo set by the room. You set it. You are no longer seeking approval. You are choosing impact. That shift in behavior reframes the social hierarchy. It makes others feel the need to qualify to you, even if just momentarily. It works in interviews, in arguments, in negotiations, in romantic conversations, everywhere. Why? Because it signals something primal. This person is not afraid of discomfort. And in human psychology, that trait is magnetic. The moment you pause, people lean in. Their ears sharpen. Their inner dialogue shifts from "what is he trying to say" to "why is he so composed?" And that question plants a seed of respect. Because very few people have the emotional regulation to sit in stillness without signaling panic. This isn't about silence for effect. It's about recalibrating your relationship to urgency. You're no longer in a rush to be validated. You're in command of your presence, and in that command, you communicate power more clearly than any word could. Let's take it further with a metaphor. Imagine a courtroom. One attorney rushes through his opening statement, talking fast, over-explaining, trying to win the jury with sheer volume. The other stands still, waits, lets the silence hang just long enough to become noticeable. Then he speaks, calm, slow, deliberate. The jury locks in, not because they agree yet, but because they feel the weight of someone who doesn't need to be heard to know his own voice. That's the effect of the 2-second pause. It's not passive, it's sovereign. You occupy space like it belongs to you, not because of status, but because of internal permission. How to apply it immediately. 1. In conversation, when someone finishes asking a question, don't speak. Count 2 slow beats in your head. Hold eye contact. Let your face stay neutral. Let your body stay still, then answer. 2. When you're challenged, pause. Don't defend, absorb. Let the energy settle, then respond, not to win, but to clarify. 3. When you're about to say something important, pause first. Don't announce, don't signal, just wait, and then speak like what you're about to say matters. 4. Practice this with low-stakes situations. Barista, coworker, family. Watch how people respond, then bring it into higher stakes rooms. Over time, this becomes muscle memory. Not an act, not a tactic, just your new baseline. And with it, people begin to treat you like you know something they don't. Because in a way you do. You know the tempo of authority, the rhythm of respect, the sound of power before the sentence even starts. This 2-second shift isn't cosmetic, it's structural. And once it becomes your standard, you'll never go back to chasing presence again. You'll beat presence. Number 3, the advantages you unlock when you pause. The 2-second pause is more than a moment of silence. It's a reset button for social power. Once you begin to deploy it, not as a gimmick, but as a habit, you start to notice a shift that runs deeper than just being heard. You notice respect, space. People wait for you to finish. They think twice before interrupting. Your presence thickens. You no longer feel like you're chasing conversations. You are directing them. This is where the real transformation begins. Let's start with the most immediate benefit. People stop interrupting you. Why? Because when you pause deliberately, people don't know when you're done. It creates a moment of uncertainty, and in psychology, uncertainty equals attention. The brain doesn't want to miss what might come next. A 2015 study from the University of Michigan found that individuals who spoke in slower, paced rhythms were interrupted 60% less than those who spoke quickly and continuously. The pause acts like punctuation, except instead of closing the sentence, it suspends the meaning, giving your words more space and more perceived weight. Consider Eli, 36, a sales executive in Denver. He was used to getting steamrolled in pitch meetings. His clients would interrupt, talk over him, steer the conversation. After learning about the 2-second rule, he decided to change how he presented. He paused before each major point, held still, made his clients lean in, and something shifted. They let him finish. They respected the pacing. It wasn't magic, it was tension. And tension, held well, is magnetic. But beyond commanding space, the pause gives you something else. Control over your emotional response. We live in a reaction-based world. Social media rewards speed, arguments reward outrage. But men of strength, men who practice reason over reaction, create space before they respond. That space is where power lives. In Stoic terms, this is prohairesis, the inner faculty of choice. Epictetus taught that while we can't control events, we can control how we respond to them. The 2-second pause is the gatekeeper of that principle. Imagine you're confronted in public. Someone criticizes you in a meeting. You feel the heat rise in your chest. Most people react. They get defensive, explain, lash out. But you pause. 2 seconds. You breathe. You allow the emotion to rise and pass. Then you respond, not from your wound, but from your center. That's Stoic power. Not coldness. Composure. Let's look at Natalie, 43, a defense attorney in Houston. In court, she began practicing the pause not just to command the room, but to manage her temper. One time, a prosecutor made a condescending remark during a hearing. The room braced for her rebuttal, but she said nothing for 2 long seconds, then replied, "Let the record show the facts will speak." Her tone unshaken, her body still. The judge, the jury, they all took note because she didn't bite. She controlled the tempo. She owned the space. And then there's the deeper transformation. You become the one who sets the rhythm. Social dynamics are like music. Someone always sets the tempo. Most people try to match it. Fast talkers speed things up. Anxious energy pulls others into a faster, messier rhythm. But when you slow down, you invite others to slow down with you. And that shift changes everything. It makes others see you as grounded, in control, trustworthy. A Harvard Business Review article from 2020 cited a study where leaders who paused before responding to tough questions were consistently rated as more competent and decisive, even when their answers were identical to those who replied instantly. The pause didn't change the content. It changed the perception. And in a world built on perception, that's gold. Let's use a metaphor. You're on a dance floor. Most people are flailing, trying to keep up with the beat, looking around to mimic others. But then someone steps onto the floor with poise. They don't rush. Their movements are intentional, slow, precise. Suddenly, the crowd parts. They're not the loudest, but they set the tone, because the rhythm comes from them, not the room. That's you now. When you pause, you reframe the space. You aren't a participant, you're the axis. People respond to your movement, not the other way around. Let's go even further. When you speak less, but with more weight, people unconsciously elevate your status. This is called the scarcity heuristic. In behavioral economics, it refers to the brain's tendency to assign more value to things that are rare. When your speech is deliberate, spaced, and minimal, your words feel rarer, more expensive. The silence around them becomes part of the meaning. Think about Leonard, 29, a junior engineer in Seattle. Quiet guy, smart but often overlooked in meetings. After adopting this method, he noticed something strange. When he paused before speaking, people started to look to him for input, even when he didn't offer it. When he did speak, they listened. Not because he changed what he said, but because the frequency and delivery made his contributions feel high value. You become like an author who only writes when there's something worth saying. You're no longer filling the air. You're curating impact. And that curation makes people pay attention. How to apply this in your life immediately? 1. Practice the pause during storytelling. When you're describing something, don't rush. Pause between ideas. Let people sit with your words. 2. In disagreements, pause before reacting. Not to be passive, but to assess what response serves me, not my emotion. 3. In leadership roles, pause when asked for decisions. It shows you don't make choices impulsively. That alone builds trust. 4. In dates or romantic conversations, pause before you reply. It signals confidence. You're not trying to please, you're offering your truth with control. 5. In presentations or pitches, use micro pauses between points. It helps your message land, gives the audience time to absorb, and shows you're not performing, you're anchoring. Over time, this isn't just a communication tool, it becomes a way of living, a posture, a rhythm. You stop chasing speed, you start radiating calm. And in a noisy world, calm is power. People treat you differently when you pause. They defer, they respect, they listen. Not because you demand it, but because your entire presence says, this man owns himself. That's the true reward of the 2-second rule. It's not about silence, it's about sovereignty. And once people feel that in you, they treat you as someone they cannot afford to ignore. Closing. You're not just speaking, you're leading. This wasn't a video about talking. It was a video about timing, and timing is everything. Because the world doesn't respond to noise, it responds to presence, it respects stillness, and it listens to the person who doesn't rush to be heard. A 2-second pause seems like nothing, but it reprograms how people feel around you. It interrupts their assumptions. It forces them to reconsider your weight in the room. And most of all, it tells them, without a word, that you are not here to chase their approval. You are here on your own terms. Master this, and you shift from explaining yourself to being expected, from performing to belonging. Because power isn't how loud you speak. Power is how much space your silence commands. If this video helped you see communication differently, hit like. Share it with someone who talks too fast, tries too hard, or feels like they're never taken seriously. Subscribe to Victory Stoic if you want more tools for unshakable self-mastery in a loud, reactive world. And I want to hear from you. Drop a comment with the phrase, "Silence is strength." Or share a moment when holding your composure gave you the upper hand, in a meeting, in a fight, in a moment that mattered. Because the truth is, you don't have to change your voice. You just have to change your rhythm. Let the world chase noise. You move with weight. Thanks for watching. Thanks for holding space. And remember, you don't need more words. You need fewer. Better timed ones. 2 seconds. That's all it takes. And once you feel it work, you'll never go back to filling the air again.